What are the evidences of evolution? Evidences that evolution of life forms has indeed taken place on Earth has come from many quarters. Fossils are the remains of hard parts of the life forms which are found in rocks. Rocks form sediments, and a cross section of Earth's crust indicates the arrangement of sediments one over the other during the long history of Earth. Different aged rock sediments contain fossils of different life forms who probably died during the formation of the particular sediment. Some of them appear similar to modern organisms. They represent extinct organisms like dinosaurs, and a study of fossils in different sedimentary layers indicates the geological period in which they existed. So the study showed that life forms varied over time, and certain life forms they are restricted to certain geological time spans. New forms of life they have arisen at different times in the history of Earth. All this is called as paleontological evidences. The age of the fossils they are calculated by radioactive dating method, and embryological evidences they also support the evolution. Embryological support they were proposed by Ernest Haeckel, which is based upon the observation of certain features during embryonic stage common to all vertebrates, and they are absent in adults. For example, the embryos of all vertebrates, they include human, develop a row of vestigial gill slits just behind the head, but it is a functional organ only in fish and not found in any other adult vertebrates. This proposal was disapproved on careful study performed by Carl Ernst von Baer. He noted that embryos never pass through the adult stages of other animals. Comparative anatomy and morphology also shows similarities and differences among organisms of today and those that existed years ago. Such similarities they can be interpreted to understand whether common ancestors were shared or not. For example, whales, bats, cheetahs, and humans, all mammals, share similarities in the pattern of bones of forelimbs. Though these forelimbs perform different functions in these animals, they have similar anatomical structure, and all of them they have humerus, radius, ulna, carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges. So when we study these organs, we find that these are also called as homologous organs, which indicate the divergent evolution, and these structures are homologous. So here we find that all of them they have the similar structural pattern. First is radius and ulna, and the first one is humerus, then radius and ulna, then we have carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges. So the same pattern is observed in all these organisms, whether it is we can say different organisms like whales, bats, cheetahs, or humans. Okay, they all have similar structural pattern, but they have evolved to perform different functions, and this indicates homologous organs, and which explains the divergent evolution. Homology indicates that common ancestry, and the other examples these are the vertebrate hearts or brain in plants also. So here we find that divergent evolution, homologous organs which have similar structure but different functions, they indicate common ancestry. Examples are of whales, bats, cheetahs, and humans. They share similarities in pattern of bones of the forelimbs, and these forelimbs they perform different functions, but their anatomical structures they are same. They all have, as I have told just now, humerus, radius, ulna, carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges. And the vertebrate heart and brains they also indicate. Then in plants also we find thorns of tendrils of bougainvillea and cucurbita. Here you can see bougainvillea and cucurbita. What we find here, they also represent homology. Homology is actually based on divergent evolution. Here we find thorn is present in the axil of the leaf, and here They are modified to form the tendrils, but their structures, they are same, but they are performing different functions in the plants also. Now, homology is based on divergent evolution, whereas analogy refers to a situation which is exactly opposite. Wings of butterfly and birds, they look alike. They are not anatomically similar structure, though they perform similar functions. Hence, analogous structures, they are the result of convergent evolution. So they have, their anatomy is different, but their function is the same. So different structures in the convergent evolution, we find different structures, they are evolving for the same function and hence having similarity. So other examples of they are the eyes of octopus, and we also find eyes in the octopus. Here you can see octopus eye and the mammalian eye. What we observe here is the eye of the octopus and of mammals, or of the flippers of penguins and dolphins. We can say that it is a similar habitat that has resulted in selection of similar adaptive features in different groups of organisms towards the same function. Okay, so they evolved from different origins, but they are performing similar function, and that indicates analogy, which is indicating convergent evolution. We also see here the flippers of penguins and dolphins. Okay, flippers of penguins and dolphin, they also indicate analogy or convergent evolution. In the same line of argument, we can say there are different, it is similar habitat that has resulted in selection of similar adaptive features in different groups of organisms. Sweet potato, it's a root modification. Sweet potato is a root modification, and potato, which is a stem modification. It is another example of analogy. Okay, they both are performing the function same. They are storage, food storage, but their origin, it is from root and it is stem, so their origin is different. In the same line of argument, similarities in proteins and genes performing a given function among diverse organisms gives us a clue about the common ancestry. These biochemical similarities points to the same shared ancestry as structural similarities among diverse organisms. Man has bred selected plants and animals for agriculture, horticulture, for sport or security. So man has domesticated many wild animals and crops, and this intensive breeding program has created breeds that are different from the other breeds, for example dogs, but still they are of the same group. So it is argued that if within hundreds of years man could create new breeds, could not nature have done the same over millions of years? Yes. So another interesting observation supporting evolution by natural selection comes from England. In a collection of the moths which are made in 1850s, that is before industrialization set in, it was observed that there were some white-winged moth. Okay, light and dark. There are two types of moth, they were available. So before industrialization set in, white-winged moth, it was observed that there were more white-winged moth on the trees than the dark-winged moths like these. Dark-winged or melanized moth. But in the collection carried out from the same area after industrialization, that is in 1920, it was observed that there are more dark-winged moths in the same area, and their proportion was reversed. So it was a peppered moth which occurs in both light versus dark. Industrialization has actually influenced these group of organisms. So moth was originally light in color. It is a mutation which occurred, and moth turned black. At the same time, the trees were getting darker because of the industrialization. So those that were dark blended into the trees. They were better and they survived. So they camouflaged. So they were able to survive. So peppered moth and industrial melanism. So this is called as industrial melanism. This explanation, this observation the predators, they will spot a moth against a contrasting background. So during post-industrialization period, the tree trunks became dark due to industrial smoke and soot. So under the condition of the white-winged moth, they did not survive due to predators. So a dark-winged moth or melanized moth, they survived. So before industrialization set in, thick growth of almost white-colored lichen over the trees. And in this background, the white-winged moth, they survived, but the dark-winged moth, they were picked up by the predators. We know that lichens, they are used as pollution indicators. Okay, lichens, they are also used as pollution indicators, so they will not grow in the areas that are polluted. So moths that were able to camouflage themselves, that is hide in the background, they survived. And this understanding is supported by the fact that in areas where the industrialization did not occur, in rural areas, so the melanic moths, that was low. This showed that in a mixed population, those that can better adapt, they survive and increase in population size. No variant is completely wiped out. So industrial melanism is the darkening of the species due to industry, and two main forms, peppered and melanic, they both were present. And in areas of industry where the tree bark is darker, the dark moth, they do better because they were able to hide themselves. And in the non-industrial areas, the light moths, they did better. Why? Because lichens were there and they were able to hide themselves there. So this is how industrial melanism explains how that no variant is completely wiped out. And in areas where the industrialization did not occur, melanic moths was low, and in a mixed population, those which can better adapt, they survive and they increase in population size. Similarly, excess use of herbicides, pesticides, etc. has only resulted in selection of resistant varieties in a much lesser time scale. This is also true for microbes or microorganisms which are against which we employ antibiotics or drugs. Here we find that microbes which are against which we employ antibiotics or drugs against eukaryotic organisms or cells, the resistant organism cells, they are appearing in a time scale of months or years and not centuries. And these are the examples of evolution by anthropogenic action. So this, we call it as anthropogenic action. In this, we find this also tells us that evolution is not a directed process in the sense of determinism. It is a stochastic process which is based on the chance events in nature and chance mutation in the organisms. Like here we see that harmful bacteria colony is there, and mutation creates the antibiotic resistant cells, and antibiotics create selective organisms, pressure killing, non-resistant cells, and those which survived, which were resistant, they survived, and the others, they perish. So this adaptive radiation in Galapagos finches, another example during his journey when the Darwin went to Galapagos Islands, there he observed the amazing diversity of creatures of the particular type, but he find that the small black birds, later they were called as Darwin finches, amazed him. He realized that there were many varieties of finches in the same island, and all the varieties, he conjectured, evolved on the island itself from the original seed-eating features. See, if original, they were seed-eating features, and later on they developed. The process of evolution of different species in a given geographical area, starting from a point and radiating to the other areas of geography, habitats, is called as adaptive radiation. Darwin finches represent one of the best examples of this phenomenon. Other example is Australian mammals. Now, a number of marsupials, which are different from the other, they evolved from an ancestral stock, but all within the Australian island continent. When more than one adaptive radiation appeared to have occurred in the isolated geographical area, which are representing different habitats, one can call this convergent evolution. and placental mammals